Home nothing. I'd like to try this thing just once. Come on, honey.
We'll show him a thing or three.
No one will agree completely with my ranking. All opinions are valid. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It would be great if, in the comments, you post your ranking 1 to 10, 1 being the best, and I will compile the viewers' choices. The criteria is based on the overall movie. You can find supporting videos of different levels of detail in the complete Fred and Ginger playlist. A link is at the end of this video. With the huge success of Top Hat and Swing Time already in the making, the studio rushed out Follow the Fleet to capitalize on their popularity. Originally planned as a follow-up with the Roberta cast, Irene Dunne was unavailable, and they really could not put Fred and Ginger as supporting cast anyway, so it had a rushed rewrite, and Harriet Hilliard, later Nelson, replaced Irene Dunne. In between their two greatest movies, and not allowing Fred the time to do his magic with the songwriters, it is a nice movie, but pales in comparison to the other two. In many ways, Follow the Fleet was a refreshing change. Fred and Ginger are not the idle rich, luxuriating in opulent, faraway settings. Fred is a sailor, Ginger is a performer in a little club, and for the first time the story is in America, San Francisco to be specific. They're just regular people that also are incredible dancers. Like in Roberta, Fred and Ginger are reunited lovers, and this time Ginger starts right off showering Fred with love. Until he screws up, of course, and then screws up again. Some things never change. But in 2 scenes, little Fred is gallant, heroic. You really gotta love him for that. Harking back to their vaudeville days, Fred and Ginger do a very funny and unusual comic dance scene. The highlight of the movie, though, is their first somber, beautiful ballroom dance, Let's Face the Music and Dance, to end the movie. I have some issues with this movie. Not with Fred and Ginger, and for the most part not with the movie itself. I like it very much. My issues are with the studio, RKO, what they did and why, and how they then used this as justification for future damaging moves. All discussed in the documentary series. Follow the Fleet was produced by Pandro S. Berman, directed by Mark Sandridge, songs by Irving Berlin, co-starring Randolph Scott, Harriet Nelson, Astrid Allowen, Lucille Ball, and Betty Grable. The movie starts off on a Navy ship with Fred singing a funny little song, We Saw the Sea, about the monotony of a sailor's life. At their lockers, his friend Scott sees a picture of Fred and Ginger's dancing act, and we find out Fred proposed to Ginger and she rejected him. The boys go to a dime dance joint. Fred pretended he did not care about seeing Ginger, but runs to a phone right away. Nelson has come to see her sister, cannot get into the club unescorted, so Scott helps her out. Then he blows her off right away because of her appearance. Of course, Nelson's sister is Ginger, and we see Ginger also cherishes pictures of Fred. Ginger gets her friend, Lucille Ball, to dress Nelson up. Ginger performs the catchy Let Yourself Go, and in the middle of the chorus is Betty Grable. Fred sees Ginger, and they are reunited. Ginger is so adorable in this scene, teary-eyed with joy. After Ginger rejected his proposal, He had disappeared, joined the Navy, and she didn't find out for 2 years. Fred is still bitter about this, pretends he no longer cares, but it is obvious how much they still love each other. The girls did a great job fixing up Nelson. I love movie history, and I love this image. The fourth billing and 2-bit players. Or the future queen of television, Lucille Ball. The highest paid actor in Hollywood by the late 40s, Betty Grable. And the star of a long-running, very popular TV show, Harriet Nelson. Now when Nelson walks past Scott, he is all over her, does not even recognize her. Nelson is thrilled. Waiting out back for Scott, Nelson sings, "Get thee behind me, Satan," worried about temptation. Fred and Ginger accidentally enter the dance contest and perform a fun dance to "Let Yourself Go." In a nice touch, Fred's choreography partner, Pan, searched the local clubs for the dancers Fred and Ginger were competing against. Of course they win. Fred just has to screw up. On his way out the door, he insults Ginger's boss, and she loses her job. He promises to get her in with the big producer tomorrow. Things are going great for Nelson until she mentions marriage, a phrase Scott is allergic to. Ginger's friend Alwyn stops by and then waits for Scott outside. Fred is stunned when he finds out the fleet is sailing immediately. The girls have had an unexpected, wonderful day until they see the fleet sailing off. Fred gives dancing lessons on the ship, a tough challenge, until the Marines break it up. Not knowing she has already lost Scott, Nelson contracts to have the ship she inherited fixed up from an old family friend to make a life for her and Scott. Fred and his band put on an impromptu performance for the brass, singing and dancing to "I'd Rather Lead a Band." This dance is highly regarded by professional dancers for Fred's ability to dance on the half-beat or off-beat. The fleet pulls back into port. Nelson is excited. Ginger is still mad at Fred. She has arranged the audition herself for the next day and wants to succeed without Fred's help. Nelson arranges a beautiful dinner for Scott as Ginger leaves for work. When Ginger gets home, she finds Nelson sleeping, having been stood up. Ginger refuses to call Fred back, and he sleeps the night in a phone booth, waiting for her call. Ginger does a great tap dance to "Let Yourself Go" for her audition. Fred is outside, trying to arrange an audition for Ginger, not knowing she is in there, and when a drink of water is requested, he sabotages this other girl by putting bicarbonate of soda in the cup. Ginger tries to sing and walks off humiliated. That evening, Ginger was to sing at Alwyn's party, but she still feels poorly, and Nelson will fill in for her. There is a part of me that does not like when Ginger plays mean girl to Fred. He might be a goofball, but he is always a well-meaning goofball. But I love this scene. If she has to play mean, then play it well. And little Fred is so heroic, as Ginger damn well knew he would be. He brags to Ginger how he got rid of the other girl auditioning. Ginger vows to get even with him. He has no idea why. First she dances with another man, looking so gorgeous in that dress, glaring over at Fred. She discovers the only way to know he is a Navy officer is by his ring, and borrows it. Then she tells Fred a man has been terribly crude to her, and points out the officer. Fred fearlessly charges over and confronts him. This guy has to have 50 pounds on Fred. Ginger is smirking, but at least a little concerned when Fred ends up in the pond. Now she makes Fred aware he is an officer and walks away on his arm, saying Fred does not look well. Maybe he needs some bicarbonate of soda. Jeez. Nelson is thrilled meeting Scott, but he blows her off. She sings the somber and fitting "But Where Are You?" expressing her sadness, a nice performance. She sees Scott with Alwyn and hears he lied about being on duty the night before, and her heart is broken. Fred visits Ginger with a monkey and flowers. Ginger is still mad at him, but more worried about Nelson. Fred finds out Nelson is the girl Scott has been dodging. Nelson has to come up with $700 by Saturday, and Ginger assigns Fred the task. Fred puts together a fundraising show on the boat with his Navy buddies and Ginger's friends. Ball gets her best line to date. Fred and Ginger do a very nice 3-part scene here too. I'm putting all my eggs in one basket. First, Fred again shows off his piano playing skills. Then they take turns singing the song. Finally, they do a vaudeville-style comedy dance scene to the music. It seems Fred has to fix everything for Ginger, and she should appreciate him more. He offers Alwyn a part and rehearses with her, so Scott will hear it and think it is true and break up with Alwyn, and it works. The night of the show, and Fred is missing. Ginger is furious and says if he does not show, no more Fred in her life. Her character is tough to deal with in this movie. It was her stunt with the officer that got Fred's liberty canceled. Regardless of the trouble he will be in, he will not let the girls down. He assaults an officer and goes AWOL, diving off the side of the ship. My hero. The big producer comes to see the show. Scott is sent to arrest Fred. He talks with Nelson and realizes she is something special. She is too hurt and tells him it is too late. He goes to arrest Fred and learns the reason for the show, all Nelson has done for him. He lets Fred perform, even if it will get him in trouble also. Up to this point, it has been a decent movie. Some laughs, some nice song and dance routines. Now comes the highlight of the movie, an act in the show by Fred and Ginger to Let's Face the Music and Dance. This is their first somber romantic dance, and it is beautiful. In my opinion, it is these that separated the Fred and Ginger movies from the rest of the musicals of their time. In this case, Irving Berlin's song, Fred and Pan's choreography, Fred and Ginger's dancing, and their acting while dancing, creates a scene of overwhelming emotion and class. While Fred harshly disapproved, this is so beautiful that Steve Martin and Bernadette Peters performed an homage to this scene in 1981's Pennies from Heaven, and as the ancient quote states, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. Well, it's a Fred and Ginger movie, happy ending required. Scott and Nelson are engaged and plan on sailing the seas together. The big producer offers Fred and Ginger a contract. Fred says only if Ginger will ask to marry him, which she does. The boys sail off to the ship and the brig, happy, as the sisters wave to their men. Please like and subscribe.